Thank you. Okay. So now I have to repeat everything. I have this website running in CSAM server somewhere. Actually, this one. In the next 2 weeks, you will be doing this. It's tomorrow assignment. But the website is building using Docker from the assignment one. So today we will building the Docker and running on your local host first. And in the next 2 weeks, you will deploy your Docker into a server like this. Okay. You can try this one. So I hope you didn't break my website. So this is how I imagine the assignment look like, but you don't need to follow any of this. Especially if you're not using Dash, then you can completely have different websites. Yeah, got the idea. So what I imagine is you go to one of the page. This is for the first assignment. Then the next assignment we have another page. I explain what is this. So I have a form to put some number, and I click somewhere, and then I got the prediction out from the backend server, from the backend code. And then I have a data here, print in the table. I want it to be scoreable, but I haven't managed to do it yet. So you're dealing with it. This is what we have. So my page didn't do much. I have one hard code. So here is the equation I want to perform. So I have y equal to x1 plus x2. Just plus the two input. So this is the hard code version. So inside the code, there is a function with x1 plus x2 and then return the number. And then I create a bunch of x like this, which is a pair of x1 and x2. And then a label, which is actually just passing the two columns together and get a column. Then I use this data set to train a linear regression. And then I use that regression over here just to see that I can train a linear regression to predict x1 plus x2, which is a very stupid way, but it turns out it can. So you can check these coefficients. This is coefficient of x1. This is coefficient of x2. So when you use this coefficient with the x1, x2, then it becomes x1 plus x2 and then return. So this is the output, but it's just in the NumPy array form. Okay. But in your assignment, you're not doing any of this x1 plus x2. You are doing car prediction. Then you have to do scaling with your input. I think assignment one instruction forget to explicitly say when you scale the features and then you train with the scaled feature, when it's come to the prediction and inference, you have to scale those inference and those input data using the same scaler. So when you scale the input, when you scale the train, you have to say the scaler in a pickle form, same as a model. Right, just a reminder, so you don't get deduct the score. Okay, so, but this is not what we are going, this is what we are going to do today, not training part. We're going to build a Dash website, but I'm trying to keep more like a Docker heavier part, not a Dash writing development. You can find the code from GitHub, machine learning. Yeah, so I update this appendix Plotly Dash to this version, So if you will refer to the older one, now it's our update. Okay. Let's begin. I'm gonna do it from scratch. Okay, so for every project, when you start a new project, what I usually do is I do a new Docker file, and then I do a Docker compose. Right. You don't need to use this file name like exactly, but it's a good practice to keep it similar to everyone. If you have multiple Docker files, the way I manage my Docker files, I have unique naming font. So if I have a dash Docker file, then I put dash dot Docker file. So today I'm going to use this one from Python. Okay, I'm going to select Python image. Bookworm. Okay. Today I use this one for fun. I don't know why. So because I'm developing, I'm gonna keep this container running. So by keep this container running, I use tail dash f slash this slash now. So it will not die when we run the container. If you don't have this, or if you use something like Python 3 main.py, once it's finished run this main.py, the container will die. It will stop working. So to keep it alive, we start with this, and then we change it later. Okay. All right. Now, this is a bare bone Python image. So because I haven't run any installer command for the new packages, we start from there. Okay. So now I'm gonna complete my Docker compose. I'll keep this on the right if you're still writing. Version can be any number. I don't know why, but I just use 3.9. Services, because we can have many services as we want, but I just want the dash. This is the service name. So when you right click compose up, when you right click compose up, this is the name of your service. It can be web. It doesn't need to be dash. It can be web. Any nickname you like for this service. If you have database, then you can have DB or database. But I'm gonna use dash. I'm gonna name my image like this. You can put any image name, but I start with my Docker Hub account. So once I finish building my container or image, I can push my image to Docker Hub. So I start with my name, my account. If you don't know what is Docker Hub, this is Docker Hub. And if you haven't have an account, please have an account since the bootcamp. I have my account over here. Here, this is all the images I have pushed to the Docker Hub, just like GitHub. It's the same hub with different prefix. So it's the same idea. You have something, you push it to the server, and then it share to the world. The dash. Okay, tutorial, I guess. Using this to specify tag here. If it doesn't specify the tag, it will be automatically to latest. I will keep it version 0.1. Tag is just string, any string. You can put just any string. Right. Then I'm gonna build this image. I'm gonna explicitly say I'm gonna build the image. So I put build. For now, you just remember that you have to put context dot followed by Docker file, Docker file. This Docker file is as same as this one. So I have to put dash now, dot Docker file, right? At this point, you should be able to right click, compose up. If you cannot right click and you cannot find compose up, then you forget to install Docker extension. So you find Docker extension over here, and then you install this one, right? Now my image is built. This is the receive or the log output. Then once I have the image, I can click to the Docker extension on the left panel. You should be able to see a list of container over here. Hello, and I move this one. No, okay. Why is it refused to move? Okay. Here, if you use Docker Compose, your container will be likely in this format. But if you haven't used, if you are not using Compose, then there will be a fold, there will be this name, list individual containers with all the container underneath. So one benefit with Docker Compose is all your image or your container is organized nicely in this. So it will be list per project. So you can see I have other projects, and all of them use Docker Compose. Right. Then with this, I can right click, attach Visual Studio Code, and then I can use the Python inside the container. But it is bootcamp basically. Just to make sure that you are in the container, check in the left, the most bottom left, which is say container, blah, 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 blah. If you cannot do this, then make sure that you're using remote development. Here is find remote development. You install this one, it will come with other remote things. And when you click on the most bottom left, you will have these things to use. So it can shell into VSL, shell to some other server. And in this case, we're going to share into the container, so attach to the running container, or it's the same thing as right click, attach the studio code. Right. So now we're going to develop Dash. So now we have Docker, compose Docker file, we have container, and we verify that these two files is written correctly by right click, compose up, and then you're able to attach the visual code successfully. Then that's how to verify. Compose down first. Okay. I'll make sure everyone can do this. Hello. Okay. Anyone still have problem? Compose up. Okay, I guess no. So then we continue. So we're going to map volume. The common problem I think in the past 2 weeks is you write the YAML incorrectly. So this is one of the syntax for writing basically another language. So you need to learn the syntax. This is like a dictionary. So this is the key. Inside the key, there is another object. So these in services contain dash. In dash contain image, field, volume. Sometimes people do this. So it's completely different meaning. So now it means there is a dash. Inside the dash is image. In the image, there is a field. But it has to be in the same level, just like Python. The indentation matters. The volumes is this list. So the list, to write the list, you have to one indent with dash and space. And then you put anything. If you need a new key, a new value for the list, then you keep adding like this. So now it has, so now volume contains a list of 3 strings. Okay. Volume, the left is the host part and the right is the container part. So first, I'm gonna do VS Code because we are doing development. So I will put VS Code server into root.vs Code server. This way, if you keep extension of the, when you shell or when you attach Visual Studio Code to the container, it will keep all the extension that you install in the container. So you don't need to install extension every time you build a new container. Now I'm gonna imagine that I will have a folder called code. Doesn't need to be this name, it can be any name. Source code, source, projects, project without S, any name, but I will use code. And I'm gonna imagine that all my dash code will live inside this code folder. I will map this to root code. This one you don't need to put here. You can put in any part in the container. It can be the /code /ml to any name. But I keep myself consistent because I normally put it in the root, home of the root. Right. So from now, I'm gonna compose up again and just make sure that this small change works. It's unlikely for me to complete everything and then run once. I make a small change, I run and see if it successfully runs. If I have 100 change, I copy Docker Compose from somewhere and it's contained 20 lines. And then I run and then it's failed. I will have no idea what's wrong. So this is my habit. It takes slow, but it's getting there instead of you are there, but it doesn't work. So then along the way, I explain what happened when you do this. So volume, then I map the volume. Once the container starts, these folder will be created. If it's not here, then there is a high chance that this is not like this because you have to reference the path using /. If you use just /, it will be somewhere else. it needs to be dot slash, and it's gonna be here next to the Docker file and Docker compose, right? Now I'm gonna go inside my container, right click, and choose serial code. Now it's the moment we wait because not we wait, but we have to wait to install a bunch of extension. But I'm doing this because of the container I'm building is for development. If my container is for deploying, I'm not installing extension because it's not needed. You will see. For now we do this. Okay, installing Python. This morning I found some computer refused to install Python because of permission issue, blah blah blah. If you have the same issue, when you click install and then you wait for 5-10 minutes and then it's failed to install, it could be your antivirus preventing you from doing this. So remove your antivirus. I don't have any antivirus, so I cannot show you how, but the way to check is you find antivirus here. Open, if you use Windows 10, Windows 11, it's supposed to be the same. So go here, Windows Security, find virus and threat protection. Because I doesn't have a third party antivirus, so I don't know how to show you how to turn off the antivirus. But if you want to turn off and you want to make sure that your antivirus is turned off, you go here, you find, I think this one, turn this off. And what you should see is like this. It should complain. Now it's complaining everywhere that I don't have antivirus running. But mine is fine, so I'm gonna keep my antivirus running. Okay, so this takes some time. And here, if I do it correctly, when I come back, I should see this folder that I'm not the one who created, because this folder is basically shared with the container, and the container is the one who put down those folders. Okay, so while we are waiting, let's go to dash hotly. Okay, I'm back. Right, so Python just finished install. So if you install Python, then you should have two things, Python and Pylons. So make sure that your extension is working and your container is working. At this step, you should be able to execute Python. So open folder, find root code, because that's the part we map to the outside host. Right click, new file, any name. So any name, .py, print, hi, right? There is a lot of problem with this because some image of Python can come with multiple kernels and you have no idea which one. Like this 3.9.18, 3.11.2. So which one to use? There's two ways. First, you have to remember the version you chose in the beginning. So go back here, check the Docker file. So I use 3.9. So I should choose 3.9. So this one. But the other way is you can use terminal. So control tilde, the key below the escape key to open the terminal, or here go to run view terminal, this one. So you click this, you should get terminal, and then you type Python 3, and then check the version here. If you use different Python image, then this should be exactly match the image version you chose in the beginning. Okay, so I'm going to choose this version. This is a kernel is going to use to run this code. At this point, you should be able to execute this file. So here, run start debugging F5 or run without debugging, control F5. And then it should run peacefully here. Hi. Okay. Okay, so now if you want to do Jupyter, there are two more things to do. First, install Jupyter in the extension so that the VS Code can understand the Jupyter. You create a file, any name, dot .pynd. Now you get the Jupyter, but only once I install these extension, I can select the kernel. Same procedure, shows 3.9.18. Then I can run this one. And with an extra step. So earlier I told you there's two things to do. First, install Jupyter extension, and second is to install pip3, install IPY kernel. Right. So once you have this, then you can run this. Okay. So I'm gonna keep that in my Docker file. Run pip3 install IPY kernel. If you have question, why do I know all of this? Why do I remember all of this? Because I've done this like 1,000 times. I create a new container every day. I don't know why, but yeah. So I remember all of this by heart. This is why I don't have a life. Okay. So if I didn't explain anything, I supposed to use only 10 minutes to set up this, but I'm teaching, so it's 40 minutes. It's fine. So now we're going to start developing Dash finally. Dash. If you doesn't use Dash, then I'm going to assume that you know what you're doing. So you should build your own kernel. So I'm using Dash. This is the library. So I take a look at the Dash installation, and the Dash told me that if I want to use Dash, I have to install two of these, the Dash and Pandas. So run p3 install Dash, run p3 install Pandas. If I want to use this now, I don't need to. If I'm tired of compose up and down to get these two libraries, then I would just do here p3 install Dash. But you have to keep in mind that this is only temporary. So when you compose down or destroy your container, your pip install is gone. So you have to keep in mind that you install it in the terminal. You also need to write pip install in the Docker compose file. But I already done that, so I'm gonna, because I know what I'm doing, so I'm doing this. Okay. I'm gonna verify I have dash, dash, dash. This is dash. This is not dash. Okay. Installation minimal dash app. Okay. I want this one. Give me minimal one. Minimal dash. Right. So this is minimal dash. And three minimal dash. Okay. Right. At this point, I can execute the dash, and the dash is running in my container with issue. The issue is, how do you access your dash website? So if you try to right click or control click this one, then you cannot access. Why? You shouldn't be able to access the dash. Crap. What? Okay, this is not expected, but you will likely have problem access the site. Why? Okay, that's one thing. One good thing about Visual Studio Code, even though you are not explicitly say mapping the port to the container, if it done this here, yeah, it done this here. So now it's automatically mapped the port, so I can access the port. But there is a high chance that you're not getting this. So let's assume you have problem, and if you have, and you should have problem. And if you have problem, then you have to map the port. Earlier, the dash is running on 8050. So what we want is we want to map the port from the host to the container port. So how you do it is you go back to Docker Compose, you write ports. And then on the left is always the host, on the right is always the container. The dash spawn in 8050. And now you're going to map the host port to the 8050. So I'm gonna say 8049. 9060. Okay, 9060. 9999. Okay, I'm gonna use this one. It's a joke number, so you know it doesn't matter. What matters is you have to map some port to the 8050. This is matter. What else is matter is you should not use the port that is under 1024, because those ports are likely occupied by some other service. So we are not using any port lower than 1024. This is what this needed. You need to remember this. So keep it high, but not exceeding 60 60,000. All right, now I'm gonna compose down. Compose up. Okay. So earlier I used pip install in the terminal. So now I have to wait for the Docker compose to build the image. But this will be wait once. Once I have once this is installed or once this is built, we will use the cache here. Next time we will use the cache. But this time we sit through this. Right. So now that I have the container running, I show you that the information in the Docker container, it has this port mapping from 9999 to 8050. And then I'm going to attach Visual Studio Code. Right. And execute the port. Okay, I don't want to show this just yet. Output here. So I execute this code using Control F5. So you can see this is the bar it's running. Now we're not using this one. We can go to your browser of choice, type localhost 9999. Oh, okay. I know another problem. Sorry, I forget one thing. Yeah, I can show you this. This is the newly added configuration from the Docker Compose. So now it's mapping the port from my host 9999 to the container port 8050. But the issue we have is not true. I don't think it's this one, because what you also needed is to say, to write this one. Okay, I want you to check this one. This is the link. And when they say 127.0.0.1, it is basically a local host. A local host will resolve the domain of localhost into this IP number. If you have confusion with IP number, just remember, if it's 127.0.0.1, it's only accept incoming, technical term. You cannot use it. So what you need to specify here that any host is allowed. So use 0.0.0 here means allow any host, allow any IP, allow anyone to use this. So now I'm specifying this explicitly. I rerun the file again. And now the links change from 127 to 0.0.0. And I hope I can access it. Yay. Right. So people who has problem accessing your dash, your anything from the container, there are two problems. First is you haven't mapped the port. Secondly, the web server is not allowing any host to access it. This is two common issue, two known issue. So you have to find this configuration. Okay. And if you hate running the port on 8050, then you can explicitly specify the port number you want. Port, okay, port, I'm going to use 80. But if I use 80, then I have to compose down and compose up to map the port from 9999 to 80. So I'm going to keep it at 8050. Okay, so at this moment, who cannot access your dash from your browser? Do they wait? I'm gonna wait for you to try this out. Okay, this is what you want. And this is the compose file. This the compose file. This is a Okay, so I will attempt to explain what do we have currently by drawing. So give me 5 minutes, 5 more minutes. Uh, zoom, zoom, zoom. I have you later. Share content. Okay. Stop. Screen. Okay, so I would like to explain a fundamental of networking so that you have a better idea of what is going on. There is the terms IP, IP address, and then port number. Uh, in ideal world, any machine should have its own IP address. And if you have different machine, like server, is supposed to have its another IP address. And with and each machine you has a unique number of IP address. And there is a system here that solving how to talk to different IP address. So if you are this guy, if you are this person, you using this machine, so this is you using your own laptop, and you try to access google.com. Then this has to solve into IP address. Let's say solve into IP address B, and then you issue some get anything into the server. So it, and then you access Google here. This is now Google, right? So over here, we discuss how to routing from one place or one IP to another places. So routing, we use the term routing because we connect to one of the network, and then the network will connect to the other network, and it's keep connecting. So each network will be connected through a hop. So if I have to enlarge this one, this is a router. Router. A router is, as the name suggests, is doing only routing. So when you request to visit IP address B, you talk to this guy, to this router, you are connected. The router will get your request, and then it's find the route and find a way how to go from here to here. So you don't need, you have to trust the router that is taking you to the correct destination. So this part we don't discuss. What we're discussing is you have an IP address and the other guy can have IP address. Any machine should have its own IP address if it's going to connect to the network. In principle, one IP address will have many ports. So now we come with the port. So IP address B, you will have port 0, port 1, port 2, until port 65, something. It's 60,000 something, so I'm gonna say like this. There is a limited port number, which is 65,000 something. Each port will be mapped to a service. And normally when you call to HTTP, the HTTP will go into the port 80. And if you use HTTPS, it should go to the port 443, sorry. And currently your dash is living in the port 8050. Right. So if you run the dash twice, you will get a message, the port is already occupied, or you cannot reserve the port, or the resource is invalid, or is busy, the port is busy, something, because each port can only occupy one service if it's going to use the network. And if you try to access the port that has no service, like 99, currently there's no 99, 9,000. Okay. If you try to access this one, then you get denied because there's no one accepting the request. So in this case, your browser should say timeout because it's waiting for the response, but no one responds. Error something because you get denied by the firewall. Invalid, you should get timeout normally if you're not disabled by the firewall. We're not discuss firewall yet. Okay. So I'm gonna put this into my own context. My context is you have a home. Your home UIP address is your home number. This is a fence. This is my home number 10/10. And in the networking world, my home contains 60,000 doors. So I have door 0, I have door number 1, I have door number 2, and to door number 60 something. And when you request to HTTP google.com, then you're basically trying to walk into a door number 80. And if you use HTTPS, you walk in, you're trying to go into a door number 443. You are knocking the door. Someone answering or not is another story. If there is a web server or someone waiting at the door, this door number, then there will be someone opening the door, talk to you, and then you get the response. But if no one is at the door, then you keep knocking, and then no one answering. So you have to go into the correct door or the correct port number. So now that is the idea. But in a Docker and in your own computer, this is what happened. This is your computer. This is your computer. Your computer connects to the LAN or Wi-Fi. So I'm going to draw a LAN cable or Wi-Fi. It's the same thing in this context. So at this here, a router will assign you an IP number, an IP address. So you can imagine now at this physical port, you are now having a house with one house number and a 60,000 something doors closed. So nobody can access your computer from the internet. Only you can go out. Nobody can go in. A Docker is run inside your computer. And when we say it's a container, it's actually a container. So there is a box that the Docker leave. When you spawn a container is run inside this container, inside this big container. Okay, I'm gonna run out of space, so I'm gonna draw one container. This is a dash container we just create. A Docker is each container, you can imagine that each container is actually one computer. So there is virtually a LAN cable connecting your container, a dash container, to here. How do I draw this? Okay, I'm gonna draw some network. Right. So if you have some other container here, here, all of this container has its own LAN cable. So it has its own IP address. It has its own port. And usually when you want to and your computer can talk to your Docker via this virtual IP address. So you can imagine that your computer is also virtually connected to this Docker network. So you basically has an imaginary port, LAN port that is plugged into this Docker network. So if this is IP address A, then you will have IP address B. So you will have two IP address, one for talking outside to the network world, and the other one for talking to your Docker containers. And each of these containers will have its own IP address, IPC, IPD, IPE, F, E, and etc. So if you really want to go into a Docker, you have to find an IP of the container, this IP. And if dash is running on port 8050, then what you have to type into the browser is IP address C port 8050. This is what we normally should be doing to access your Docker. But when you go into Google and you search how do I open dash, how do I access container, everybody will say you use localhost. Or someone will say use 127.0.0.1. For now, you can imagine that these two things is the same. When you type localhost or when you type 127.0.0.1, is the result is the same. So for now we don't need to care about whether you use localhost or 127. Either of these will result in you going to your loopback. The technical term is loopback. So instead of trying to go out into any other computer, going to a Docker container, this is the browser. If you type localhost, it will just go back to your computer, and then you basically access nothing because your computer has no 8050. Right? So then the question is, and then why, and earlier, before I explain this, why can't we use localhost 9999 and access to the dash container? So what we have done there is forward port. Or in a Docker term, I think it's called map the port. So when we specify (9999) to 8050 using into the dash container, a Docker network, we tell the Docker network that if someone is trying to enter the door, okay, over here is a host home, and over here is the container home. So when I say home, is a IP address or house number. So here I will have a list of 65 something doors. And also over here, the container also contains 65, something goals. Right out of colors, black. So when we issue this command, we tell a Docker network that if someone is access the door, trying to open the door, 9999, they basically open the terminal into 8050 over here. So when you open the door 9999, you go into 9999, you are going into container. So it's going, you basically walk through the whole house and meet anyone who is live in 8050 of a dash container. Make sense? That's why we call it forward port, because this port will forward here, you like forwarding you to the other destination. Sorry. If you forward the message, then basically doing relay, but this one is not relay. It's basically take you to the other port. It's the concept of private network, which we're gonna talk. If I have to discuss this, it would take like another 30 minutes. Well, between public IP, private IP. In summaries, in the real world, we don't have enough IP address. So we have to reserve a range of IP as a private IP. And in the private IP, every home, your dorm, anywhere, they will use private IP. So by a private IP mean everybody knows with this number pointing to this range, it means that it's going to talk into only inside the local network. You cannot, this one will not be using outside of the local network. So each local network, CSIM, your dorm, your home, you have the same range of IP. So you check your IP at your dorm, you're likely to get you get this range. 192.168.1.0. Yeah, you will get this range. 192.168.1.0. This can be any number from 1 to 55, actually 54. So if you go to your dorm, you check your IP address, you will get this IP number range. If you go to anywhere, basically anywhere, you should get this IP range. Because we don't have enough public IP. But then how do you, if you want to allow someone from outside of your local network to go through to you inside your home, is it a replica of this? So I can draw this. I'm gonna try to explain this. So this is you. So you're sitting in your dorm, and this is your IP, 192.168.1.100. You have to connect to your access point, which normally acting as your router. So this is your router will have IP 1.1.1. Wirelessly through a cable, doesn't matter. Oh. Right. And when you try to go outside, your router will connect to the network, basically network. But the true term is the internet service provider, or ISP. So let's say I'm here, this is me, I want to go here. Is it possible? And the answer is yes. Because here, your home, even though here is one IP or one local network, but in order for this router talking to other network, it must has one IP address. So no matter what, finally there will be one public IP at some point. At some point. So if I want from here, from anywhere, let's say I'm from the network, I want to connect to you inside your house directly. What you can do in your router is forward the port. So at this place, you will have 65,000 port number. And inside, you also have 65 port number. What you need to do is forward port from here to here. You just need to tell you just need to let the router know that if someone wants to access port 9999 using IPA, so IPA port 9999, you basically create a tunnel into a port into, actually, this is the correct way here. 8050. So when I'm trying to access IPA 9999, my actual routing would be from here. I go to the network, it resolve everything. So it's route me to here. I access the port 9999. Your router forward me to your laptop at port 8050. So we call it forward port. It's directly, I have a direct access to the internal IP. This is the same principle as this one. So if you understand it, you understand this. If you understand the other one, you understand the others, because it's the same thing. It's a private network. A Docker has its own private network inside your computer. And if you want to access Docker, you cannot use, you're supposed to be able to use the private IP, but it's easier to just forward the port. So that's why you use localhost with some port number and access to your container. And that is why we need to use this port. We have to specify this configuration so you can access your container. And that is also why your dash needs to write 0.0.0.0, because when you access from your computer, you are not accessing through a local host, but you're accessing using another IP range. So you have to accept, the dash need to accept any IP range. So you have to specify 0.0.0.0. Okay. That is the, I know people has a lot of problem with this. This is the explanation. And this is the correct explanation. You can take any version you like. This is the correct explanation. Do you need to understand this? Actually, no, because all you need to do is writing the port number in the Docker Compose. Right. So that is why we need this. That is why we can use localhost 9999 and access the 8050 in the container, spending 40 minutes to understand this two line. So now from now on, actually this is done. My tutorial is done. My point is to explain why you need this Docker compose, what does this mean, and why do you need 0.0 this port number? And it's up to you to do the code inside. I think it's easier if I'm go through what I have written in the example. Then the work is from scratch because it's gonna take too much time. And I know that your brain probably stopped working because of the map import and forward thing. If you really want to understand Dash completely, I suggest that you go through this quick start. So we have gone through installation, minimal Dash app, and then you only need to spend another 20 minutes go through a tutorial. Then you will understand the Dash. If you're not a web developer and this is your first time writing web, Dash helps you a lot. So you don't need to write HTML, you don't need to write CSS, you don't need to write JavaScript, you don't need to handle any bootstrap. Tediousness. Because if you want to use Bootstrap and you write HTML, pure HTML, then you have to download Bootstrap from the Bootstrap website. You have to find a place where to live, and then you have to take care of the SS and CSS and a lot of things. In Dash, it's take care of this for you. Finally, you have to write HTML at some point, but Dash just take care of that. So how do we understand Dash is how do we understand this code? Is to understand this code. So this is the minimal Dash app. This is importing Dash libraries. And the Python code runs from top to bottom. So it's going to execute from this line, through here. This is a function. And this basically tells the Python that if you execute this file, then this section of code is executed. If you write Java, C# before, this is the main function. When you execute your projects, you need to execute from the main. So this is a version of main in Python. So if you're not executing this file directly, or you're importing this file, this section of code will not get executed. So that's it. That's the explanation. So when I run Python 3 minimal dash.py, what has happened is it's declare this data frame, it's declare the app, it's declare how the app look like. We skip this, and then the app, one is finished, defined, you start a web server using app.run. When you use app.run, then there is a web server spawn using this configuration. And then when someone trying to access the Dash, it's basically interacting with this web server. Right. If you're a developer before, if you're especially if you're a PHP developer, then this is an equivalent of the Apache, equivalent of the Nginx, and this section of code is the equivalent of the PHP code and the HTML and CSS things. Right. So this is how you write the UI. I'm gonna show you how I write the UI. So first, I'm gonna use Bootstrap. So because I don't like writing CSS myself, Dash has a built-in Bootstrap component. And all I have to do is do this, hit install Dash Bootstrap component. Then I have an access to a Bootstrap component. And I don't need to write HTML. All I have to do is follow this manual. So that is what I'm going to do. Git3 install this one. Oh. Right. So I'm going back here just to make sure that I won't forget this one. Right. Okay. Then this is what is needed. Import dash bootstrap component. And then we define the app. Sorry, this one, dash. Right. So previously we have this. Now we're going to use this one instead. So we don't need this one. Right. So this is basically importing the Bootstrap CSS JavaScript. If you write HTML, you will know how tedious this is. But in Dash, this is all you need. And if you want to use one, then this is the component, one of the components. And if you want to start writing the web page following this Bootstrap component, you go to Document, you click this one, Components, and then you have Components over here. The point is not you know how to use Bootstrap. I don't want you to go in depth writing the web UI because we are doing machine learning. So I don't want you to spend time doing Bootstrap. But I'm gonna give you the ideas of Bootstrap layout. Or how do you look at the HTML? Or how do you look at the website? How do you break down the components? The Bootstrap will see your screen as a block. So here is the block. So imagine that this is your entire screen. And then we divide your screen into a row and many columns. So when you look at this site, this is your entire page. There is a row for the navigation bar and another row for this content. And in this second row, there are the left column for the navigation for the submenu and the right column for the content. So this website contains two rows. The second row contains two columns. And if you want to go deeper, in this navigation bar contain a smaller column over here and some other column over here, which is possible. And inside this content over here, it contains smaller rows. And let's see if I can show you a smaller column somewhere. Okay, probably no. But you can imagine that this is a smaller row, and inside the row it has its own content. So that is how we break down the website into a section of rows and columns, and each of the component has its own information, data, whatever. For the first time developer, web developer, you would spend time understanding this concept. So if you think, why is this so difficult? Then it's not your, nothing is wrong with you. It's very difficult. It takes me like 6 months. And even today, I still hate writing web page up until today. So the point is for you to demonstrate your models. So the way I imagine that you want to create is you have a form, fill in some number, click the button, it's going to, and it's send this number back to the Python code. The Python code runs some things, return back something. So we start with the form. So here's the form. A good thing about Bootstrap is you can just copy this and then it's work. So if I want this form, this layout, then I just copy this, right? If I like this form, then I follow what they have done here. Okay, so I'm gonna keep it simple. I'm gonna use this simple form. The way they break down the components is, you don't need to do this, but this is for management, for management normally. You can write everything in one block of code, but since we can break down this into a smaller component, so this section of code refer to this component. And also this refer to this component. And then these two components will be added into a bigger component called form. So here in the form, we contain email input and password input. Email input means this, password input means this. And then we put this form into a layout. And basically, this page is the layout. It contains a lot of things, and in a lot of things is this form. So I'm come back here. This is the app layout. So this is everything. I want this to be just form. So form, right? So I start from here. Form, then I come back here. So I come back to here. I'll have to run the code. Right here. So now that's the form I just copied. Then I need to change the way the form look. So maybe I have two features for the user to put in. The input is actually this one. This. So the input is actually the input box over here. So feature one. right? So I save, and then this supposed to change. So now my input box, right, placeholder text, because I said so. Uh, this is just a text, so it's just a label, feature one. So I change this to feature one. This now also change to feature one. Do you like this text? So I don't like it, so I just remove it. Right, now it's gone. I'm gonna change this to feature two. This is not essential, so I can try to keep essential things. Type, type number. Integer. Yeah, let me take a look what type it can be. So this basically tell how the input should look like, the input box. So step input dash. Do I have input type number? Okay, number. Yeah, number. That's number. Okay. Oh, here. Yeah. What I want to show is uh, Bootstrap has covered a lot of things for you if you follow the Bootstrap way. So in this case, now I put my input box as a number, then I can have this taking thing to running some number, choosing number. And in a password, if I say that this input is supposed to be password, then I will type something. It will be just a dot hiding the password. But if I change this to text, I think it has text, then this input will change its behavior into displaying the text. I want this to be another number. Feature two. Right, right. Okay. So now I have two box with the capability of running a number. Then I need a button to click. So I go here, find some button, and then you basically choose what button you like. So I like this one. I'm gonna call this submit button, which is equal to this. And then I append the button over here. I come back, I choose see my button. Here, button. The tedious thing about this is you have to keep thinking what should be done, what should happen when you click this button. This is how you write a front end. What should happen when the user click this? What should happen when the user click this? What should happen when the user click this? So what should happen when the user click this is this button should send these two things back to the server. So to achieve that, you need to perform these callback things. So we have to bind this. So basically, we binding this function to an action over here. So we have to set this correctly first. So I'm gonna follow the dash, the dash. Where's my dash? Dash 20 minutes. Right. Luckily, there is an example over here. Where is the button? Here, submit. Finally. Uh, there is no shortcut because this is a framework. The correct way to learn the development is to learn the framework. And we can say the framework is good or bad. If the framework is good, if you go through it document and then you get your job done. If you go through the document, you spend an hour and you get nothing done, the framework is crap. No matter how good the framework is that document is bad, then that is not a good framework. Luckily, this one is kind of fine. So I go through this. I remember that I have seen this submit button before. So this is the example of using the submit button. I'm going to follow this one. So the submit is over here. HTML button, student submit. So I guess I need this one. The correct way is you read the entire page, but I'm trying to not doing that. I guess I need an ID. Submit. And I think I'm going to need, I need to bind this submit ID. Oh, I haven't explained the ID. The ID is crucial in the HTML. Each component can has ID, just like an ID is supposed to be unique. And you should make it unique, but it's not. But if it's not unique, then HTML just accept it. So it's your own, so it has to be your own responsible to make the ID unique. For this will pair submit. The ID of this submit will be paired with this object in the HTML. So it will be easier in the JavaScript to find this object. So we're going to, or to reference to this object. So we have to, so you have to keep track of your ID, right? So my input field has ID. And this input field also has its own ID, which is unique. This button has its own ID, which is unique. But this form doesn't have ID because I didn't say so. I can make it has an ID, but in this case, I don't need the ID for this. So I'm gonna keep it like this. And when this is render, you go here. If you never debug a website before, if you use, I suggest you use Google Chrome, right click, inspect, and then you can look at your HTML. Even though you didn't write an HTML, the dash render this code as an HTML. You can click this one, and then you basically scroll through your components, so you can debug what happened and how is your HTML look like. If I chose this one, I can see that there is an input with ID feature one, right? So this input box has the ID feature one. And I'm supposed to be able to call that ID. Let's see if I have jQuery. I think it's done. feature one here. So in the JavaScript, I can refer to this object using this syntax. So sharp means you're going to find the ID followed by the ID. So here in this case, ID is feature one, so I have to put the sharp feature one. And then I can use dot value to obtain the value inside the input box. So if I have a value like this, I call this, I get this text. Right. This is what you have to do if you don't have dash. But you have dash, so you don't need to do this. But there are other things you need to do. So what you need to do is you have to write your callback referring to the ID. So where's my dash? This one? The one with the submit button. This one. Okay. So with this one, the output, the callback function is basically for the dash to render this as JavaScript code. There are three things. I think there are three things you have to understand is there is the input, there is state, and there is an option. The input is the trigger. So when do this function is execute or get execute is when this input is made some condition. So this input will looking at this ID, and this ID is this button, and this end clicks, I think, if I'm not wrong, is the result of the click. How many times it's got click. Right, I guess so. Yeah, I start from here. Then in my callback, I need the input to look at the submit button. So my submit button has an ID submit. So submit. And this is the property I'm gonna looking for is the end clicks. Right. So I put the key here for learning so that you understand that this is the ID and this is the property, which is anything here. And click. Okay. Inside this function, you can use this property like this. So it refers to this in click. And if I remove this, let's say print in click, right? I'm gonna return nothing. So now I'm gonna try to click the submit button and see if the console prints the number of clicks first to make sure that this is working. What I understand is working. Okay, do that again. Go back over here. Refresh. Now I'm trying. Okay. Now I'm trying to click. Hello. Okay. Nothing is happening. There's a lot of errors. How about no callback missing? Maybe I don't need this one. If you need to submit, something is very wrong. Yeah, I guess so. I don't want you to sit through this, so I'm gonna copy the working version. Okay, let's just go to the working version. Machine learning, machine learning, machine learning. The point is I have been through this, so you don't need to go through this. I have a workable project, and then you can pull from the GitHub. Is in the appendix dash plotly. And then all you have to do is right click this one, compose up. This is the Docker file. This is the Docker compose. So what you need is to access 90,001. So if I compose up, then I can access my working dash example through localhost 9001. And then you take a look at my code. But because of my code is not simple anymore, because now I have 2 pages. I don't want you to, what you would need to look at is an example of this model one. I'm gonna show you the model one, right? This is the layout. So the layout is, there is a text, there's another text, then a form, followed by 2 buttons. So I'll scroll down to show you the layout at some point. This is the layout. So I define the layout, and the layout contains text, form, this one, and table. Text here is this one. Text is a bunch of text, which is this header one, followed by a paragraph, which is this one, header followed by 3 paragraphs. Then the layout followed by the form. The form is this one. This is the form. The form contains 2 inputs, x1, x2, and 2 buttons. The first button is for the hard code version, and the second one is for the sklearn model version. So x1 is like this, and this is x2. What this matter is these 2 things, ID and the type. These 2 things, ID and the type. So the first input is the ID of x_1, and the second one is a x_2, and both are type number. So I cannot type text, I only can type numbers. So how do we buy this button? Then this, because this is already work, so you have to use ID. A unique ID for this button is submit underscore hardcode. When I click this button, it's paired with this callback. So let's take a look at the input. This one. So once this is clicked, then this is called, and this is the input. These 2 input will follow this component ID x_1 and x_2. And this will come from the value of the input type. So if I print x1, print x2, print submit, right? uh, there's another thing I have to show you, but for now, this is how you look at the print. This one, right? So I'm gonna put some number, click this button, and should it just say something? It doesn't. It's supposed to print something like some of this into here, but I don't want you. It's supposed to. It should. Uh, but that's okay. For now, just all you have to do is follow this structure, and it should be fine. So there is a state which is taking the current value of the input x1 and the current value of the component x2, pass into the function, and the function perform this and return something, which is this return. The returns is going to this output. The output will, this result will go into this component, y hardcode. Y hardcode in my HTML is what? Is this one. This is y hardcode. It's just an HTML output object. And you just write a children. So the value goes into the children, if that makes sense. So the value goes into children of the output tag. And if you don't have this one, once you open the page, this will get executed right away. So I put prevent initial call. When you open the page, it doesn't just execute this function, right? So this is for making a button work, and this is for loading the model. I have a model I trained from somewhere else, and then I'm gonna load the model using this line of code. This is basically a pico function. So I put all those code into a utility file here. So load, this is the load function. So I don't need to have this two line of code in my model one. Right. So I load this, I got the model. If you train the model using pandas data frame, when you try to predict, it will expect pandas data frame. Because I train my model using pandas data frame, so this is required. Otherwise, the model will complain. So I did this, I get the prediction, then I send out the result like this. Right, so it will be prediction result with the model coefficient. So I click this one, I get model set, predict equal to this, coefficient equal to this. Right, so this is the objective of the assignment one. You build the form, you click the button, you get the result. That's it. This is all I need. And when you're using Docker Compose, once you shouldn't need to attach the visual code into your container and type Python main.py to run your web server. It should be composed up, your web server just run. So to do that, there are two ways to do that. First, in the Docker file, you change the last sentence or the last command to Python 3. In my case, it's main.py, right? Because this is the main file of my project. But if you notice, I don't need to do this. I don't need in my uh, in my projects. All I have to do is compose up, and then I can use localhost 9001 to access my website right away without doing this. I will show you. Let me finish this one. So Python 3, I don't need to specify issue the new command. So I can override the command on the Docker file using this one. So this will override the command in the Docker file from tail-f blah 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 into Python 3 main.py. So this will ensure once I compose up, this command is used to run the container. Thus, I don't need to attach my visual code to the container, and I don't need to manually type Python 3 to run my projects. This allows me to just compose up and access my website. Right. So if now we come back to the question, what happens if the code is lived inside one of the folder? I want you to take a look at this. In my Docker file, I have this command work directory /root/code. And with this, when I attach the shell, I will start from /root/code. If I change this to something else like just /demo, a random name, compose down, compose up, wait for the installation. Oh no. I'll recommend these. Okay, so now I change this command work directory into /demo. It's supposed to die. Okay, again. Okay, now I attach my shell again. Once I attach, now I start from here, /demo, following this work directory. So the idea is you shouldn't to change directory, you use this work directory command. That's it. So because I already planned out that my project will leave here /root/code, I will start from /root/code. And you don't need to worry whether this folder exits in the container. If it does not exit, it will create it for you. Right. So if you tie it up shell into your container, attach shell, attach visual code, and execute your projects like that way, you can change this command to Python 3 main.py. So you don't need to do it manually. With this, when you compose up and then you execute the container just run this for you instead of tail-f. Right. Uh, and if you want to make sure that your container runs fine, you right click at your container and view logs. When you view the logs, it's everything that the service is printing through the standard output and standard errors. So instead of you get, so this way is mimicking you attach the shell and run this Python 3 main.py yourself. So you get the same text as you manually run the code. Right. And the correct way to push this Docker image to the Docker Hub is you have to copy the code inside your container, inside not inside the container, inside your Docker image. The idea is this image should contain your code, and anyone who wants to run your service does not need to have this code folder. So when you build your container, when you build your image, copy the code into your image. This is different from mapping the volume in Docker Compose. The difference is during the build time, your image contains the code if you do this. And then this folder /root/code get replaced using this volume when it gets composed up. So there's slight difference. If you don't understand it yet, just make sure that you just understand that you don't need this one during the development. And when you want to deploy, you need this one. We come back this again in the second assignment. But for now, I explain this line of code if you have questions about this, and I explain this line of code because so this Docker Compose. At this point, you should be able to understand this Docker Compose. The difference between this tutorial and this project is this one. In my main.py, I didn't specify the host and the port in the run server. Instead, I put those in the environment. In the environment, it results the same for the Dash project. But if you use different projects like Flag, Fast API, maybe you need different ways to resolve your host and port issue. And if you want to look ahead, this is the Docker Compose for deploying to the server. But you don't need to read this now. You can save it for tomorrow when the second assignment is assigned. Right. So when do you have to submit this again? Tomorrow, not today? Tomorrow, before the end of tomorrow? Okay. So you have one more day, but I don't think you need all of those time because basically you can jumpstart using this one. Okay, so I guess if there's no question, then I end the tutorial now. Right, I end the tutorial now. Bye bye.